Stumps and Stories podcast with Nishat Vaidya.
So when we talk about cricket, we often hear the word all-rounder. And when we say all-rounder, we think about a player who can obviously bowl and bat to good measure, contribute in all departments. But we look at all-rounders even beyond the sporting field, because there are some individuals who have achieved not just in the sports arena, but also off it. And today, I've got someone who's really inspirational and whose journey has been a lesson for a lot of people. And it's my honor to speak to him because it's a journey that really fascinates me. And it's been one that has had so many achievements and so many milestones and memories as well. So it's Dr. Rudie van Vuuren, who joins us from South Africa at the moment. A little bit of an intro from my side, of course, before we bring him in. Dr. Van Vuuren has represented his country at the World Cup in cricket and rugby, and at the Rugby World Cup twice, in fact, the 1999 World Cup and the 2003 World Cup. As the name suggests, he's a practicing doctor. He was involved facing some of the biggest challenges, health challenges in Namibia in the early 2000s. And later, he became an avid conservationist. And today, he's still involved with Cricket Namibia, and at a time when the team is really achieving a lot for the country. So thank you so much, Dr. Rudie, for joining us. And it's indeed our pleasure to have you on this show.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
So, let's just start right at the beginning, because you have played two sports. So how did that start about? Because here in India, it's generally that we pick one sport, and that's generally cricket. Or if you pick some other sport, generally you're just focused on it. How did you become a double international?
Well, I always loved playing rugby and cricket. And I used to play against my brother in the backyard. And then when I got a bit older, and the Namibian cricket team first picked me in 1997. And I went to the ICC tournament in Malaysia. And when I came back, I was picked for the rugby team. And I was lucky. Then I played rugby and started playing rugby and cricket. And I was very lucky that the team managers and the coaches understood each other well and spoke to each other and managed my workloads very well. In a rugby season, I had to put on weight, more muscle, and in a cricket season, I had to trim down. And I was helped a lot with that by the two coaches and the managers. So that's in Namibia, you have to double up with everything. You have to do everything.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, because by land mass, the country is sizable, but the population is small. And you've, of course, played the Rugby World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, and you played both sports. How did you balance it out alongside your academic commitments? Because being a doctor, you really have to study a lot. You've got to go to the university. There are a lot of exams to clear, the practicals, etc. And learning itself is so difficult. It's so important. How did you balance all that out?
That was very difficult. I became very good at managing time. Because at the time that I was playing for Namibia rugby and cricket, I played for 7 years. I played rugby and cricket. In the winter, I played rugby. In the summer, cricket. I was then practicing as a medical doctor. So to genuinely be at the practice enough was quite difficult. But I was very lucky. I had good partners who understood that I played rugby and cricket and who accommodated. So you have to become very, very good at time management.
And later, as you moved ahead and you spoke about the 1997 ICC Trophy that you were picked for Namibia, what are your memories of that tournament, a first international tournament for you, competing for a spot in the 99 World Cup? Eventually, it was, of course, Bangladesh and Scotland who made it. So what was all that about?
Well, it was, for me, it was exciting. I did very well in that tournament. I think I was under the top 3 bowlers in the tournament. I did very well there. And then from that tournament, the next tournament was in 2001 in Canada when we qualified. We improved a lot. We learned a lot in that tournament. We had a young team. And in the 2001 tournament, where we won 13 games in a row to qualify for the World Cup. That was, of course, I think, one of the highlights of my sports career.
And of course, you played the final against the Netherlands, and it was really close. You got 3 for 35, and you lost that game, but it was really close. You had a contribution. What do you remember about that day? Because in associate cricket, those ICC Trophy finals were big encounters at the time.
Yes, the Netherlands, we always have a great game with the Netherlands. It's always a big clash. But I think, we played in the final against the Netherlands, and by that time we had qualified for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So it was almost, not as an excuse, but it was almost, we did the job. 13 games in a row, we beat Scotland. We got into the World Cup for 2003. And the Netherlands game, what I remember about the game is, I think Rudie was one of the umpires. And because he's also called Rudie, he knew me. And I said, when I was measuring out my run-up, Rudie said to me, he said, "Rudie, do you have a problem with no balls?" And I said, "Sometimes." He said, "No, you won't have a problem with no balls." He made a joke. And so I remember that. And of course, when the Dutch won the game, they rubbed it in a little bit. And we've become good friends with Dutch players over the years. And even now, some of the Dutch players who played in that time are involved in Dutch cricket. And I often see them at functions and conferences like this. So great that they also helping their cricket grow.
And how did cricket grow in Namibia around that time? Because you were playing the ICC Trophy. You played that in 97, then in 2001. Qualification was achieved for the World Cup. But what was that team like? Like, for example, you were a doctor. You are a doctor. I'm sure there would have been other teammates who had other professions. So how did you all come together? What was that like?
Yeah, at the time, we were amateur sportsmen, but we were professionals in our jobs. So we brought the professional mentality onto the sports field, if you know what I mean. So you had policemen, you had doctors, you had lawyers, you had teachers playing in that team. And the team was a very close-knit unit. It was a great team to play in, a really great culture that we created there. And then the exposure of the 2003 World Cup, sort of more and more kids started playing. We want to play in a World Cup. And then when it became professional, then kids started really seeing, okay, here's an opportunity for me.
And that's really fascinating because so many of these people coming from other professions and play a World Cup and up against some of the big names, and you were up against the likes of Wasim Akram. Then, of course, from England, Nasir Hussain was captain. In India, Tendulkar, Sehwag, and Australia had that legendary team that we all look up to. Walking into a World Cup, guys who have got everyday jobs, that feeling, that excitement, maybe that nervousness, what's that like?
That was amazing. I remember the game against Pakistan. We were 49 for 9. And at that time, the lowest score for any World Cup team was 53 all out. And as I walked in, our team manager, Francois Erasmus, said to me, he said, "Doc, just keep us out of the record books, please." And I walked in, and from the one side was bowling Wasim Akram, and then from the other side was bowling Waka Yunus. And then we went past 53, and then they brought Shoaib Akhtar on. And Shoaib bowled a ball of 161 kilometers an hour to me. There was not a single fielder in front of me. But I think that's where the rugby mindset helped me a lot. My rugby mindset was sort of, listen, I'm not scared of these guys. I'm a rugby player. So I went in with that kind of attitude, and I even started chirping Shoaib a little bit, and he didn't like that at all. So he just bowled faster and faster. And I think we eventually went to 92 or 93, somewhere there. Can't remember. But at the drinks break, I was very confident. I walked to Waka Yunus. I said, "Listen, Waka, you're never going to get me out. You need to bring on the spinners because these guys are not going to get me out." and Waka was laughing. He thought it was very funny. So yeah, it was nervous. You are nervous. we played against Australia as well, against England. You are nervous, but I think the rugby mentality helped me personally a lot.
You spoke about the rugby mentality. I actually wanted to ask you about how much did your being a doctor help you? Because I was reading about you and I saw somewhere that you were at the time one of the people who used to fight against AIDS and the pandemic and its repercussions. So how much did that mindset toughen you up for sport?
That helps you a lot. It's being a doctor. Doctors are people who take information and see how they can solve things and problems. So on the sports field, it's very much the same. So being a doctor helped me a lot. It gave me a lot of mental toughness as well. I think that was my biggest attribute as a sportsman, is the mental toughness. One day when we qualified for the Cricket World Cup, the ICC sent the high performance people to come and help us, just to get us up to a standard. And in that group of people was Bob Woomer, the late Bob Woomer. And Bob, the first ball he saw me bowl, I had a very round arm action. Bob actually walked up to me and he said, "Doc, I think you should stick to rugby." and my immediate reaction is, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you you're wrong. And that comes from the mental toughness you get as a doctor when you work with difficult situations, when you do a delivery of a baby or you operate or something and you get into a tough situation. You get a real mental toughness as a doctor.
And that certainly helped you against Pakistan, as you said, and you were laughing your way through that challenge. But the game against England is really memorable because you took 5 wickets and some really big names, I must say, because your wickets include Michael Vaughan, who was in the form of his life at the time, Nick Knight, Craig White, and Ronnie Irani among the 5. So what do you remember about that bowling spell? Because those are some of the big names of English cricket at the time.
Yeah, I that was a fantastic game. I'll never forget it. One of my favorite memories. We had a plan for Michael Vaughan. We put a short mid wicket there, and we wanted to bowl short of a length into him, and it worked like an absolute bomb. He pulled it to mid wicket. And he was out. And as he walked past me, I said to him, "Michael, it's much slower than it looks, mate." He didn't like that very much. And then in the batting, when we came to batting, I batted with my roommate Melt van Vuuren in the last 2 overs of the match. And I walked in, and Ronnie Irani was on a hat trick, and I saw out the hat trick. And then we batted, and James Anderson bowled the last over. And I said to Melt van Vuuren, my roommate, I said, "Melt, just let me face the last ball." And I faced the last ball of James Anderson, and I hit him straight back over his head into the side screen. And that was like, the English really didn't like it. I remember Alex Stewart gave me a couple of very uncomfortable words from behind the wicket. And it was just a great day for Namibian cricket that day, playing well against England.
I remember that 6 very well because I remember coming back from school and watching the last few overs. And I still remember the beaming smile after you hit the 6. And that guy is currently, the guy you hit a 6 off is currently the leading wicket taker in Test cricket for fast bowlers. So that's quite a memory.
That is a memory. That's a very lekker memory.
Yeah, but and it just got better because of course Namibia went into that World Cup. It wasn't about qualification for the next round, but about growth for Namibian cricket. How big was that game against India? Because of course 1 billion people watching. Tendulkar, Sehwag, you got Sehwag out early. Sehwag was out on 24, 25. Yeah. And then Tendulkar gets the 100, but you got him out as well. And you're one of the few people who can go and tell their grandchildren, "Hey, you know what? I got the greatest batter out."
Yeah, no, I think that is just absolute highlight for any bowler who's ever bowled to Sachin Tendulkar. If you got the Sachin Tendulkar wicket, it puts you in a different class. And to me, that was incredible. I actually bowled him a ball when he had 8 runs that beat him inside, and I almost bowled him. Yes. And then, of course, he made the 100, and I got him with a slower ball. But a fantastic man, fantastic player, very humble. I remember playing against India. Zahir Khan bowled a couple of our batsmen on their toes, and they came into the dressing room with ice on the toes. So I took one of my ball boxes, and I took the ball box and I taped it onto my left toe. And I sat there waiting to go and bat. And then our team manager, Francois Erasmus, said to me, no, Doc, take off the ball box. You're not allowed to do that. And I said, really? You really think I'm not allowed? He said, no. So I went in, and then I asked the umpire, I said, sir, tell me, am I allowed to put my ball box on my foot? He said, I'm not sure. and then I didn't do it. But it was also, Zahir Khan bowled well that day. It was an absolute privilege for us to play against such names as Sachin.
And of course, the Australians, the greatest team that we've possibly seen in one-day cricket. They had everyone, Hayden, Gilchrist, Ponting, Martin, and go down the order. You've Glenn McGrath, Brett Lee. Shane Warne was missing, but they had Brad Hogg, who did a great job for them in that tournament. Of course, that game was forgettable, but coming up against the greatest team, what was that like for players who played the game for the passion and for the love of it?
Yeah, I must give so much credit to that Australian team, because they were very hard on the field and very cool off the field. They invited us to their change room, and we had a couple of beers with them. And I remember I bowled to Darren Lehman, and he hit me all over the place. And at lunchtime, I walked into the dining area, and Lehman came walking up to me, and he said, "Mate, I'm sorry I ruined your World Cup." And we started talking, and we became friends. And then later that year at the Rugby World Cup, he was there again, and we joked about it. But they were nice to play against. But the late Andrew Simons, I came into bat, and obviously they did their homework. So they were going on about rugby. Yes, this guy is a rugby player. Come on, they hit the ball like a rugby player. They were chirping me. And then at one stage, Brett Lee was bowling, and Gilchrist said to him, "Come on, Brady, ref it up, matey. 161, that's where we want it." And then I turned around to Gilchrist, and I said to Gilchrist, "You know what rugby players really like? That's fighting." And then he kept quiet.
But you said that it didn't, of course, that game was forgettable in that sense. But overall, the experience was really good for Namibia. The fact that it was the first World Cup. In hindsight, and with you currently being a part of the Namibian board and watching Namibia cricket grow, how important was that appearance at the World Cup for Namibian cricket?
It was very important. But after that, Namibian cricket went through a very difficult time. And in 2018, the ship turned around, and Namibia started really performing. And of course, now Namibia is the only professional sport in Namibia. We've got contracted players, and we've done really well. We're very, very proud of our team, of our players, of our coach, of our CEO, of our whole setup. It's really like a family. And we are very few people in Namibia, only 2.5 million people. But we've got really something special going in Cricket Namibia. It's an amazing group of people, all pulling in the same direction.
We'll come back to that. But before that, I would like to ask you, you went on to play a Rugby World Cup the same year in 2003. I think you just played the one game against Romania. In 1999, you also played a World Cup, but this time it was just that one game. In the months after the Cricket World Cup, you said you had to bulk up for rugby. How difficult was that, changing the workload? Because on the one hand, you were bowling fast, and then you were going on to play a very, very physical contact sport.
Yeah, I think, that Rugby World Cup, my body really started. That was now for 7 years I've played, and the evening of the captain's run before our first match against Argentina in the Rugby World Cup, that afternoon, I tore my calf muscle. That's why I only played in one game. I tore the calf muscle, and I couldn't walk. And so eventually they got me better, and I played in the last game. but I think it was just all the years of playing rugby and cricket, and injuries, knee ligaments that you tear, things that you break. Eventually your body tells you, look, you're overdoing it a bit now. And unfortunately it happened in that Rugby World Cup just before the first game. But yeah, that's sport, and that makes you very tough mentally to cope with those injuries, because there was a lot of pressure then on me, because everybody said, now this is a record and this has never been done before. And so you really want to play and you're ready to play, and then you get the injury and you have to get through that.
So did you stop sports after that Rugby World Cup completely?
No. I still played cricket. I still play cricket. I actually last year was about to play in the over 50s World Cup. And then I tore my knee ligaments again. And now I've been through the rehab and now I can play again. So I'll start playing now again. I still play cricket. I'm still fit enough.
Oh, that's really great to know. But the other aspect is you went into conservation, the Naankuuse Foundation, and it's been doing some really great work. Where did that passion for conservation come about? And it's a very noble cause. We'd love to know more about it, because also I've read somewhere that Angelina Jolie also extended her support to your cause. So what's it about, and what are the challenges that you see in Namibia?
Yeah, so my wife is a conservationist, and being a medical doctor, I used to start helping her with when animals need help. And then later on, I bought a piece of land outside of the capital where we could do what she loves to do, and that's work with animals. And also she speaks the San Bushman language, which is an indigenous language. And in 2003, we actually, a young baby died in her arms because of poor healthcare. And we started this clinic for these people in the east of Namibia, where we started giving them free healthcare. And through that project, we met some people who started supporting our cause. And then the conservation, on the land that we lived on, we built a lodge, and the animals that needed help came there, and it grew and grew and grew. And it's really my passion today. It's really, I love doing that, helping animals, helping wildlife, protecting landscapes. And we've built schools and clinics and things like that. So yes, very, very, very passionate about the work that we do with Naankuuse.
And how do you balance it all? Because you're also involved with Cricket Namibia, with the sport growing at the moment in the country. As you said, the only professional sport giving contracts to their players, plus your duties with your foundation. So how do you balance it out through all this? Because you need to devote enough time and energy to both.
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky with the people I have around me. I have fantastic people around me. The people in Cricket Namibia is fantastic. Our CEO is fantastic. And in Naankuuse, it's a big organization. We employ 420 people. There I have incredible people working with me. And so it's all about the people. You're just as good as the people around you. But you have to be good at time management. And you must realize that some things you must delegate to other people and trust them with that. So I think in that regard, I'm very lucky to have people around me who makes it easier for me.
This question may sound a little bit philosophical, like we've got young people wanting to play sport. And of course, you want to do well on the world stage, which you did. You had reached the world's platform. But to pick up something like conservation and the work that you did as a medical doctor as well requires a greater sense of purpose. So is that something that you found at an early age, or it just built over time?
No, I'm someone who reacts on my convictions. If I think something is not right, I will try and fix it. If I believe in something, I will go flat out for it. And I always tell my two sons, I always say, look, you're going to die one day. That's 100%. That's going to happen. And you have two options. On your gravestone, it will say, this is Rudie van Vuuren. He lived from this date to this date. Or it will say, this is Rudie van Vuuren. He made the world a better place. And that's just how I am. And the people I associate with or have the similar kind of mindset. You have to love what you do. You have to believe in what you do, because only if you love what you do and believe in what you do, can you do it well. There was a time when I had to make a decision between continuing as a full-time doctor and going into conservation. And yes, then you consider your finances and money and things like that. But for me, it was an easy decision. I love what I do. I still work a little bit as a doctor, but the conservation and Naankuuse is my work, life's work.
It's a very great thing that you said that you love what you do. And at that point in time, when you had to decide between your medical career and the conservation career. So for any young person out there who may be in a similar spot where there are two roads in front of him or her, and they've got to decide which path to take. One may be a profession, the other may be a passion or something that is a purpose-driven area that they want to move towards. So at that point, what would you like to advise them?
You have to follow your heart. Obviously, you have to think about things, and obviously you have to weigh up risks and the future and all of that. But only when you follow your heart will you be happy and love what you do. For me, that's very important. Even with my kids, my oldest son is now in the under 19 Namibian team, which is going to Tanzania for the World Cup qualifiers. And I had to be very careful because I love cricket. I can't force it onto him. And but you can see when somebody's heart, when they follow their hearts. And I would say to any young person, you must find what you love to do. And even if it takes time to find it, you have to find it. Don't settle for second best.
And there's a lot of heart that's needed to become a cricketer in the associate world and to continue to follow that passion. You said since 2018, things have turned. So how have the last few years been for Namibian cricket? What has caused that change in the sport, especially the thing that we saw in 2021 in the UAE, qualifying for the main round? That was pretty big. And I was there in Sharjah when you qualified and you beat Ireland in that big game. What was that like?
That was amazing. You know, you can do all the hard work behind closed doors, and you can lead as well as you can. But if the on-field performance is not there, then it's really difficult. And so that's why we're so proud of our team and our coach and our captain, because the on-field performance just echoed what happened in the boardroom. And in the boardroom, we aligned the leadership with skills, and we put the right people on the bus, and we know where the bus is going. So the right people is on the bus, and they are in the right seats on the bus, and the bus is going. And our culture that we've created is a very strong culture. And that culture, if you don't believe in our culture as Cricket Namibia, then you must get off the bus. And we've made it very clear. And I think that has aligned our players, our staff, our high performance, everything very well. But in saying that, the landscape keeps changing. You know, players now play in leagues, and the economics of cricket are changing. So it remains challenging. And as an organization, you need to recognize the trends and the change in the landscape and adapt to that.
And you spoke about the bus, that it keeps moving forward, and those who are on board jump on, and then they take the journey forward. And watching the Namibian team, you get a sense that there is a great deal of unity. And it just feels so good to see them perform. Even at the 2022 Australia T20 World Cup, we saw them beating Sri Lanka, which was really big. I think the way they tricked the Sri Lankan batters with spin especially. So it looks like a very professional setup. Now, how do you continue to help that grow? Because there have to be structures to support what's at the top. And what is the vision forward?
Yeah, you need to listen to what's happening out there. Listen to your players, listen to the coaches, see where they need support. And sometimes it needs some very difficult conversations to grow as an organization. And it needs conflict, but good conflict. And we've had that in Cricket Namibia at some stages. where we really had to have good, hard conversations and then address brutal facts and then move on. And that's what I think makes Cricket Namibia so special, is that because it's the Namibian way of doing things, we rather make something work than to give up. And it's the same on the field with the players. I just saw now on the 19 team, the scores coming through, how they fought again today. There's something about Namibians, the way they fight on a cricket field and the way they fight to make things work. That is actually incredible.
And moving forward, what is the pathway and what is the vision? Like, how are you going to continue to develop and grow players so that the Namibian structure remains strong?
Yeah, it's very important that in Namibia we have great athletes, but because of the legacy of cricket is very often still seen as a white English sport. So for us, one of the key things is to find the athletes in our country and develop them as cricket players and make them success stories, help them to create and craft a career so that they can inspire other kids. You have only 2.5 million people in a country that is so big. We have the second lowest population density in the world. We have to overcome those challenges to grow cricket. And I think we're getting there. Today we won the development award, and for our program where we get kids to play wherever they are. If they are in the veld, in the bush, or in a city, or in a rural village, they can play. And that's how we're going to grow the game. We have to find the athletes and increase our depth.
Congratulations on the award, by the way. And it is really a great testament to what you have been trying to achieve for Namibian cricket. And it's really amazing that here's a man who has done so many things in his life, has picked up a fifer at a World Cup, has hit James Anderson for a 6, has bowled out Sachin Tendulkar, is back with Namibian cricket and is trying to show them the way forward. And I think it is really amazing. And it's really my honor to have you on our show, because I've really learned a lot from this conversation. So, but before we go, is there something that you would like to add, maybe as a message? Because personally, I feel there is a lot to learn from your journey.
Yes, I think, for my kids, I always say that hard work, nothing beats hard work. And it's a cliche. It's a cliche, but it's honestly true. If I think of the hard work that went into taking Cricket Namibia forward, you must never give up. Never, ever give up. Not on the field, not off the field. And if you keep working hard, you're eventually going to get there. I think that's a key way how I live my life. And you must realize that your life must impact this world. You can impact people, you can impact the environment, and you only have so much time to do it. So start doing it.
That's great. And thank you so much, Dr. Rudie, for joining us. And we wish you the very best, not just on the cricket field, but even off it, with everything that you and your wife are trying to achieve with Naankuuse. So all the very best. And yes, may they make more people like you in the future.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity.